Hi, I'm Dave Cassilo of cleveland.com, joined by Tim Bielik, and now we're going to start talking a little about next year and beyond. It's 2016s, 2017s, and how they might fight into signing day, some names you got to keep an eye on. Before we get into that, Tim, it's been such a busy day. What's been your favorite moment so far?
Well, it's just always kind of the fun of seeing the kids, officially get a chance to sign those letters of intent to figure out where they're going for the next 4 years. It's a long process, sometimes several years in the making, and it's just good for these kids, finally end that, their future's set, and they just get to enjoy the rest of their time in high school.
Yeah, it's been really a great day. We had Nordonia in earlier, and it's just a day you look forward to every year,
No doubt.
So 2016, the class of 2016, a lot of great players. I mean, we talked about a lot of great players in 2015, but next year's class is going to be a really good one. And let's start on offense. Who's the name that really sticks out to you?
I think you got to start at the top. You got to start with Liam Eichenberg, St. Ignatius. I mean, he's highly touted as one of the top prospects in Ohio, one of the top offensive line prospects in the country. There's a reason when you look at his offer sheet, you see so many powerhouse programs have offered him. In particular, Ohio State, Michigan, and Notre Dame. Seems like it could be a three-team race early on. That's going to be one that goes all the way down to the wire. I'm curious how it's going to turn out because whoever gets Eichenberg is going to get an extremely talented offensive lineman.
And we'll have Liam on a little later on in the show, so maybe we can get a little insight on where he's fitting into his recruiting process. And yeah, he's just a terrific player. You look at a guy like Cam Bell that we had in earlier at Nordonia. He's a good offensive lineman, and he's a big, hulking offensive lineman. But it seems like Liam is even just a little better and a little bigger. And when you get a guy like that, it's a special talent. Who's maybe a guy on offense in the class of 2016 for the skill positions to keep an eye on?
That's kind of hard because there's so many of them. There's so many guys like Tyler Tupa and Justin Lane that stick out. But Demario McCall is still one of those guys that I think has drawn so much attention, because he just puts up big numbers. There's a reason for a while he's been one of the top players in Ohio. There's so many programs in on him because he's just got game-breaking speed. And I'm curious where he ends up because, there's a lot of programs in on him, particularly Ohio State and Tennessee. And, he's one of those rare guys where every time he touches the ball, you think he's got a shot to score a touchdown. He's
a really, really good running back. And, yeah, a guy that was sort of like we were talking earlier when we were looking at Richard Worship. Like, Valley Forge didn't have the best year, but he's a standout. Same type of guy with Demario McCall at North Ridgeville. The team might not be on the radar all the time, but he's just such a terrific player. Not the only skill position player, though. You got two guys that I want you to talk about. Justin Lane, a big-time receiver from Benedictine, and Shantez Moss, a big running back from Bedford.
I like both those guys. We saw Moss really kind of emerge this season for Bedford along with London Cloud. They formed a great duo in the backfield. Now it's going to be Shantez's show next season to see what he can really do. And I like what I've seen of him. He's put up big numbers throughout the season. And Justin Lane, he has really emerged in the last year or so. We know he's been highly touted. And I think, with Benedictine making the run to a state championship, he really has proven that there's a lot to go with that potential. And I feel like, he just continues to get better. And the sky's the limit for this kid. I think he's a big kid at 6'3". He can go up there, he can get the football. Every program would love to have a 6'3" guy who can go up there and pull the football out of the air like that.
A couple other guys on offense to keep an eye on. Kiera Hawkins of Maple Heights. He's already committed to Ohio State, so there won't be much drama when he makes his decision. And then Nick Urban, a big offensive lineman at Willoughby South, a really talented player, maybe the second best offensive lineman behind Eichenberg in the class.
Yeah, and don't forget about Luke Farrell also. He's already got an Alabama offer, and anytime you get an Alabama offer, that pretty much certifies that you're very legitimate.
Yeah, the very talented tight end from Perry. He's sort of the C.J. Conrad of the class of 2016, so keep an eye on him as well. On defense, we got a couple playmakers. Who's one that sticks out to you?
I like Tyrese Spate from St. Vincent St. Mary. He's a guy that's contributed all 3 years of his high school career so far. He's a very active safety. He's pretty much the anchor of that secondary. Kind of probably under the radar a bit right now. He doesn't have too many offers, but I expect as his senior season goes on, maybe continues to stand out, he'll start to accrue more offers. But I think he's a little bit overlooked just because he had so many great players around him that, when the spotlight's his in the 2015 season, that's when I think he could take off.
When you look at the class of 2015, there were so many talented defenders that you sort of expect that the next wave will have that many, but it's really hard to duplicate. It's hard to find guys like Denzel Ward and Jerome Baker every year. And St. Vincent St. Mary, they've sort of felt like they've been a little off the map this year. A year before, obviously, you have Paris Campbell and Dante Booker and some really, really talented players. And I think Tyrese Spate will fall in line there. Who's another guy that catches your eye?
I like Joey Bocci from Berea Mid-Park. We saw the Titans kind of have a breakout season. They really made a push to get into the playoffs for the first time since the merger of Berea and Mid-Park. He's a good linebacker, 6'2", about 215 pounds, really good size. And he's got some MAC offers already with Bowling Green, Toledo, among others, interested in him. I think he's a kid that has that college size, and he's got some athleticism to him. I'm curious to see how he continues to progress in his senior season. I think he could be a potential sleeper at linebacker, and a MAC school is going to be very happy with him.
Yeah, big-time linebacker. I mean, he's already got the Illinois offer, so he could wind up in the Big Ten. But definitely a guy that I think is just going to rise whenever he gets more experience at these camps that they go to over the summer, and we could be seeing big things for him as well. Class of 2017 now. A little down the road, we don't know how it's going to develop. There's a lot of players in the class of 2017 that really haven't even played that much at the high school level. But there are some standouts at this point. Who's somebody that takes your breath away right now?
Got to look at Dustin Crum with Midview. I mean, I don't think anybody saw the kind of run Midview had entering this season. I think they really were just kind of under the radar. They just come out of nowhere. They had a tremendous season, and it's Dustin Crum, and a huge part of it. He's a dual threat guy. He runs well, he throws well, and he's got 2 more years to really reach that ceiling. And he just has so much more to get to as far as the potential and his ceiling, and it's just exciting to see that, there's so much more upward growth to his play.
And he could really, really take off as a recruit. And that's something, we've had a lot of big-time players the last couple of years come out of Northeast Ohio, but we really haven't had that really big quarterback that everyone is after. Mitch Guadagni lands at Toledo. Obviously, we see Cardell Jones. He's now at Ohio State, but he didn't really have many offers besides the Buckeyes. So maybe Dustin will develop into that quarterback that's really gaining a lot of national attention. Another guy that really has come on strong and had a really, really nice couple of years so far here is Todd Sibley at Archbishop Hoban.
Yeah, and when you get an Ohio State offer like Todd Sibley has, that's pretty much, like I said with Luke Farrell, it's validation you're a very good player. And, we talked about how with Tyrese Spate being around St. V, how they've kind of had a resurgence. Sibley seems like he's probably doing the same thing for Hoban to get them back on track. He had a good sophomore season. He's got 2 more years to contribute, and I think like most of these sophomores, you expect them to get better and better and better, and there's just a lot to like about Todd Sibley right now.
Who are some other guys that really catch your eye in 2017?
I got a pair of speedsters in mind I'm looking for. I'm looking at the Cavalon Reese of Benedictine, who I thought really came alive, towards the end of the season when everybody's paying attention to Jerome Baker and Justin Lane for obvious reasons. But I think the Cavalon Reese is a guy you definitely cannot sleep on. I'm going to throw a little wild card at you. Dakari Carter from Streetsboro. As a freshman, he was a sprint champion. I believe it was in the 100 meters, in Division II in the state track meet last spring. I mean, tremendous speed.
Here's 2 guys that I really like in the class. One is Jalen Harris, wide receiver at Cleveland Heights. He didn't really play that much last year because he transferred from Villa Angela St. Joseph, but he played half the season, and I think in his first game he had 3 touchdowns. So he's a playmaker. He's someone that I think Cleveland Heights is going to try to get involved beyond the wide receiver position. Maybe you'll see him take a lot of snaps at quarterback. Maybe you'll see him take snaps out of the backfield. He's just the most talented player on the Tigers, and he's only going into his junior year. Naz Bohannon at Lorraine. Now, Lorraine just had Rashad Berry. He commits to Ohio State. At the basketball game I was at for Lorraine recently, the Ohio State football coaches were there and wanted to talk to Naz Bohannon as well. So he might be that next guy from Lorraine that kind of follows in Berry's path. Another athletic guy, another guy that might not really have a position at this point. I've heard that they're talking a little about having him take over at quarterback and just try to do it all. So he's a guy to really keep an eye on for the class of 2017. Right now we are joined by a player you talked a lot about earlier, Liam Eichenberg of St. Ignatius. Liam, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right.
Liam, it's still a year away from your big day, but what are your observations taking in signing day so far?
It seems like a great day. It feels good to be one of those couple guys who are going to sign to play college football. Just been talking to guys, and they're very excited. Can't wait to start their college career.
Liam, how is the process going right now for you? I know that you're highly sought after, and where are you at in that process?
I've narrowed my choices down to Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Michigan.
Great.
Well, Liam, obviously you've been around several guys who already have committed to D1 schools, particularly Draymond Jones. How much advice have guys like Draymond given you on how to handle, the next step in the recruiting process?
They're pretty good about it. I'm pretty close with Kyle Berger, Jim Byrne, and Draymond Jones. And they just want what's best for me, basically. And they understand. But I definitely would like to play with them. But we'll have to see.
Now, Liam, you talked about what's best for you. What are going to be the determining factors here when you make your decision between the three schools? What is really important to you?
I don't want to wait until my senior year to play, obviously. But I definitely am going to look into what I'm going to study in college, education-wise and stuff like that. But I also have to like the coaches and who I'm going to be around, the guys who are older than me. But that's about it.
Liam, you mentioned those three big schools you were talking about, Ohio State, Michigan, and Notre Dame. Obviously, they're all very close to home. How important is that, making sure that, wherever you go to college, you're still staying pretty close to home?
That's a big deal to me. My grandfather and grandmother have been to basically every one of my games, and I wouldn't want them to miss any of them. I would definitely not go that far so they couldn't make it. But obviously a reasonable trip for them.
Liam, one of your schools is that school up north at Michigan, and they had a coaching change in the middle of your process. How does that impact a recruit when there's a change in coaches?
It's sort of tough, but the only guy they kept was Craig Madison, and he was my recruiter, so that was pretty good for them, I guess.
Liam, I know it's still February and signing day is a year away for you, but do you have a timetable as far as, when you're going to make your visits and when you initially expect to commit, or are you going to just kind of commit when you feel that a certain school is right for you, and then that's it, and then you just want to make your decision?
I'm definitely going to make it up to some spring practices, but I feel like I will commit before my senior year, possibly in the summer or possibly the spring.
Liam, as this day takes place, have you sort of played out in your mind how your signing day will go?
I'm not gonna be one of those guys who puts like 5 hats out, but I'm gonna tell school early so that they don't have to waste their time or focus on me anymore. But I definitely want to be able to help the recruiting class. So there'll be a big decision for me, I guess, or
Great.
big help.
And Liam, sort of off the field, obviously as an offensive lineman, you got to keep that size up. I heard a lot about your post-game meals. What do you tend to eat after a big game?
My mom, she'll give me 2 burritos or 2 burrito bowls from Chipotle. And I'll pound those down pretty quick.
Well, that'll do it there. Liam, we appreciate you joining us. Good luck with everything going forward, and we can't wait to hear about your decision.
You got it.
All right, so that's Liam Eichenberg. Again, just a standout offensive lineman. He's got it down to 3 schools, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Michigan. He said he really wants to wind up at the one where he's going to see more playing time than just his senior year. When you look at those 3 schools, where do you see the direction that those 3 schools are headed right now?
I mean, the Ohio State thing's always interesting because they just won the national championship. They developed some great linemen under offensive line coach, now co-offensive coordinator Ed Warren or Urban Meyer's developed some great offenses. It's hard to not like playing that kind of system. Michigan with Jim Harbaugh, they're probably going to more of a pro-style offense. They've had a history of putting linemen into the NFL, most recently Taylor Lewan, who was a first-round pick. And Notre Dame, they definitely are a very physical team up front, too, with Brian Kelly. They run the football a lot. They have some big, powerful offensive linemen. Zach Martin was also a first-round pick. So really, when you look at those 3 schools, I don't think there's a bad option in all 3 when you're looking at offensive linemen. Michigan, there might be a better chance to play early. If you're a run-blocking lineman, Ohio State and Notre Dame might be good options because those two teams, even though they run out of the shotgun almost exclusively, they're still power-oriented football teams.
Yeah, and you heard him say that, Michigan is still definitely in the mix because of who they left on staff. And, I mean, when you have a new coach like Jim Harbaugh, who has a success in the NFL, success in college, that's probably not going to hurt his recruitment either. So we'll see. We'll see which of those three he winds up at. But now we're going to move on to our prediction game, could, should, will. Tell me what's something that could happen in the class of 2016 or 17.
I think when I look at this class of 2016, at least 3 of these guys could end their high school careers at Ohio State, and by that I mean the state championship games. I mean, I feel like, there's obviously teams that could play in a state championship game next year. For example, Benedictine and St. Ignatius, among others, I think have early state title potential, so it's very likely at least 2 or 3 of these guys could end their careers in Columbus.
One thing that I'm going to throw out there right now, we talked about Justin Lane. Based on us when we report basketball as well, Justin Lane could wind up actually choosing basketball or a school where he could potentially play both. He's a really talented basketball player. He has Big Ten interest. I know right now the schools are impressive, Michigan State, Ohio State, Notre Dame, but I know that he has not closed the door on a possible basketball career, so that's something to definitely keep an eye on. What's your should prediction?
I think my should is I'm curious, but I think Luke Farrell should be the most interesting recruiting watch, I think, in the area. As much as you want to say, like, DeMarco McCall is going to be interesting, you throw an Alabama offer in there with Ohio State and Michigan State for Luke Farrell. You mentioned it could be like next year, C.J. Conrad. I'm curious how that's going to play out because, when you have 3 teams with that kind of talent and the success they've had in recent years, especially even Michigan State winning back-to-back January bowl games the way they have, I think that should potentially be one of the more interesting recruiting races.
My should, I'm going to move back to Jalen Harris of Cleveland Heights. I think that Jalen Harris should be the top player in the class of 2017 for Northeast Ohio. He's an electric player. When you talk to coaches who have been around him or people that have seen him play and have a little history, I mean, there have been names getting thrown around like Desmond Howard. So when you got a player that exciting, that athletic, it's just that his freshman year he really stood out at VSJ. Then he's got to sit half his sophomore year at Cleveland Heights for the team that was sort of in transition. I think junior year is going to be a big one for him, and I think we're going to have a lot of good things to say about him. What is your will prediction?
My will prediction is, by the time the 2017 recruiting rankings come out, when it comes to all these Northeast Ohio kids, Dustin Crum will be number 1 on that list. I just think because of the total package it brings at that position with the size, with the athleticism, the throwing ability, the running ability, there's pretty much very little he can't do, and by the time those recruiting rankings roll out, by the time he's a senior, among all the Northeast Ohio kids, I think he will be number 1.
My will prediction is going to look at a player we haven't really talked about, Jason Sopko, quarterback of Avon. I think he will wind up in a D1 program. Avon has sort of had the reputation of developing these quarterbacks year after year, so they kind of get late in the recruiting process because they come here, they're a senior when they start, and they play their senior year, and then they go on. But Sopko's been there all last year. He's a really talented quarterback, and I think he will wind up somewhere as a Division I quarterback. So that's it here for the prediction show for 2016 and 17. We got an Ohio State show at 5 o'clock, so make sure you tune into that. But I think this will be the last you see of us around signing day until next year, so we look forward to talking about these players that we just talked about here on cleveland.com.